Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Travis Chappell. How are you?
Shahad, what's up, man? Thanks so much for having me on the show.
No, awesome to have you, my friend. Awesome to have you. Your sound quality is incredible.
Hey, I can't take any credit, man. This is just some really awesome equipment that we were able to upgrade to finally. So it's all about that smooth microphone sound, you know?
So which podcast do you have?
So my show is called Build Your Network. It's all about how to build relationships with the people that you want to be like the most in life.
Oh, cool. So I jumped the gun there, but can you introduce yourself and all the amazing things that you're involved in?
Sure. So I am basically just a door-to-door sales guy turned podcaster is like the easiest way to say it. There's a bunch of other stuff that happened in between and all amidst all of that stuff, as you can imagine, from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, the shiny object syndrome and trying to, discover the path. All I really knew was that I didn't want to go the traditional path. So it was just kind of like a bumpy road trying to figure out what I was going to be doing. And I started my career in door-to-door sales because I didn't know what else to do out of college. I actually went to college for ministry, so I got a double majored in Bible and church ministries and got my bachelor's degree. And then I realized when I was done, it was actually my junior year. I did an internship at a church and just didn't enjoy it. And and on the weekdays, so I interned at the church on the weekends. On the weekdays, I was doing door-to-door sales outside of school. And I had my own sales team and it was going pretty well. I was making some pretty good money and I was, 19, 20 years old. And I would find myself on the weekends interning, doing the thing that I was supposed to be doing for the rest of my life, looking forward to getting back to school on Monday so that I could go work at the place that I was supposed to be quitting in, 6 months when I graduated college. So that was the first time where I started to realize maybe this isn't what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And by the time I graduated, I basically come to that decision completely. But at that point, I had a useless, unaccredited Bible degree. And I don't know if you ever tried to get a job, Shahad, with a useless Bible degree, but it's basically the same as not having a degree at all. Oh, man. And so the only thing that I really knew how to do was door-to-door sales. So I just kept doing it. And it was the only thing that I knew that I could make good money if I gave it 100% effort, because I was like, realistically, what am I going to do? Go work for $35,000 a year out of college and just have to have some like dead end going nowhere type of job or career or something like that. Like that's not going to work out. Plus I hate people telling me what to do anyway. Yeah. So door to door was just kind of like, well, I know that if I do this, I can make six figures and I can work on my own schedule and nobody tells me what to do or where to go or when I got to be there. And so that's what I ended up doing was door to door sales did that for 4 or 5 years. If you include my time in college and then include the time that I did that while I was trying to get the podcast off the ground. So after a while of doing door to door, I just didn't, I knew enough to look into the future and know that I didn't want to be doing it in another decade, So at that point I was kind of back to square one because it was like, well, I'm not going to do the thing that I went to college for, and I'm not going to do the thing that I have experience in. So now I'm like, starting from scratch and essentially whatever I decide to do next. And podcasting ended up being that thing. And so we started Build Your Network podcast a few years back, and now everything's kind of transitioned to our online businesses. So we have our podcast profit course and academy and our private coaching program. And we have the podcast, and then we also have our podcasting software company as well.
Sales is the highest paid profession. So you did a great job to go into that. What were you selling though, door to door?
Yeah, so I started in college selling solar, and then after college, I sold alarms. That was the one that I made 6 figures in for the first time ever, was in alarm sales, and then I ended up in water purification, and then podcasting.
Yeah. So then podcasting, what kind of guests do you guys bring on? Like, is it more based on like, do you do like counseling as well? Like kind of a counseling type of guest as well that you bring on for marriage and...
Yeah, so we focus mostly on entrepreneurship and like networking for the purpose of like building your inner circle full of people that are pushing you to be a better person and stuff like that. So yeah, we focus a lot more on the entrepreneurship type crowd, but we talk, networking's such a broad topic. Yeah. I can talk to just about anybody that's successful has done some level of networking in their life, regardless of what industry they're in. And they may not even call it networking. You know what I mean? Like some people, the business world's familiar with the term because it's talked about a lot, but other worlds that you talk to, they may not call it networking, but they still do it. It just, they just wouldn't call it that. It was like, oh, I went to this party one time and I met this person. I was like, yeah, that's networking. Like, yeah. just because you didn't go to just because it doesn't say networking event on the top and like you have to have 1,000 business cards and a name tag, like doesn't mean that you're not networking. But so yeah, that's mostly what we talk about on the show. That's the type of guests we talk to.
Well, that's awesome. And you mentioned something about a coaching and online course. It's a course? Mm-hmm. So what do you teach on?
Yeah. So we have our Podcast Profit Academy. And so that's our online self-study course and training program where we teach entrepreneurs how to build profitable podcasts. So that's the core of what we do there. And then for any of those entrepreneurs that are like above that, $10K a month part, we kind of move them into our private coaching program because that's more built for people that are already seeing big numbers in their business. And now they just want to add a podcast to that plan. So the academy and the kind of mastermind, some of the lower ticket stuff is just kind of like people that are just getting started, getting their feet wet. They want to build something, but they don't know exactly what yet. They need some clarity, some defining moments and things like that. And then the coaching program is more for the established entrepreneurs that just want to start building an online presence with a personal brand through podcasting.
Mm-hmm. And this course, it actually teaches them how to monetize the podcast as well.
Correct. Yes, sir. That's kind of that's really our biggest differentiation point because there's a lot of people online that teach how to podcast.
I know.
We teach people how to make money podcasting, which is a lot more rare.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking because almost everyone I met, they have the program to help you find your niche in your business, set it up, equipment, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to monetization, it's very vague. So how much focus is there on the monetization portion?
A lot of focus, but it really depends on the person that's in there. We recommend a different plan of action for different people with different goals. You know what I mean? So it's very much custom tailored to the person that's jumping in where it's like, hey, you need to focus on this part. I know monetization is your goal right now, but you need to focus on these two things first before we worry about monetization. Or somebody could come in and be like, man, you should have been monetizing 6 months ago. Let's get you started right now. You know what I mean? So we kind of work with a wide range, a wide variety of people in that context. But there's a lot of work that we do based around the monetization aspect of podcasting.
Mm-hmm. And that's good that it's customized, right? Like it's not just, hey, here's a login credential. Yeah. Go ahead. You actually talk to the person, you actually talk to the client and find out their needs. Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So what was the biggest surprise that you have had in this journey, entrepreneurship?
Biggest surprise. I'll tell you this one just because it's kind of top of mind for me.
Sure.
Biggest surprise recently has been how much of entrepreneurship is not knowable until action is taken. From the outside in, it looks to be not that way, right? Like from the outside in, you give really high value to your ideas about what could be a successful business. Mm-hmm. But once you jump into one of those ideas and start trying to actually implement it, you start understanding why there's so few successful entrepreneurs, like people who started businesses that are actually going well and still going well. I think the stat is sadly over half of businesses will go out of business within 5 years or within 3 years or something like that. It's a high, percentage that your business won't make it. And I think that's largely one of the reasons to do with it, because like people just think like, well, I have this idea, so let's go act on this idea. And if people don't take advantage of it, then we just keep pushing this one idea, even though we're meeting a ton of resistance and we're not getting people to take advantage of it. And it seems like it's growing really slowly and we're not doing anything that's actually making a difference. But they still hold on to the idea. You know what I mean? So one of the biggest surprises for me has just been like, it's not really about the idea. It's about the execution on the idea. And it's about iterating the idea until you find people that are willing to actually pay you for that idea. And then trying to take that idea to scale. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's just a lot more testing and a lot more experimentation that has to be done in entrepreneurship before you find, the thing that's going to take off. And I think people just don't think it's going to be that much work. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, I have this idea, so let's go sell it. And it's like, okay, great. How did that go? You know what I mean? Did it work? If it worked, then you might've gotten lucky and got the right idea with the right audience and the right offer and the right messaging. You might've gotten all that right the first time. But odds are you probably didn't get it right the first time, and you're going to have to do some testing. You're going to have to do some iterating. You're going to have to do some implementing. You're going to have to do some experimenting. You're going to have to do some, some conversations with some ideal clients. You're going to have to do there's so much more work that goes into it. And I think it just surprises people, and they view it as a failure, right? Like they chalk it up as a tally mark in the failure column way too soon. They don't my point is they don't understand that that's not a failure. It's literally just part of the success process. Is
part of the design.
Exactly. Like you got to test, you got to implement, you got to iterate. Like you implement something, you test it, and then you make some alterations to it. And then you do that process again. I think people do that, and then they do it once or twice. And then it's like, well, we tried everything. It's a failure now. When you read about some of the most successful companies out there, a lot of them are just huge pivots away from the original thing that they were originally intended to do. Even, look at something like Instagram. I forget the exact original idea for Instagram, but it wasn't a social media picture sharing site. That wasn't the original idea for Instagram. That was a pivot that they did with their user base after getting real customer data and feedback. And it obviously worked out pretty well for them, So I just think people give up too soon not because they're quitters. It's just because they don't realize that that's literally just part of the game. It's literally part of the process. You have to do it. It's not even an option. Like I said, you might get lucky, but do you really want to base the future of your success and your family on luck? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like you want to do what's repeatable, duplicatable. If you're going to take the risk to start a business and put in the work to start a business, that's a lot that goes into it. So stick with it and test a little bit more and iterate a little bit more. And eventually you're going to find, you're going to twist the puzzle piece around until it fits, and you're going to push it down, and it's going to oh shit, we got something here, but that takes most of the time takes a lot longer than I think what people think it's going to take.
And I heard this term before is failure is a success tax. Right.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
It's it's just a stepping stone.
Pay your dues.
You have to. I went through it. I had the shiny object syndrome as well. And plus you didn't have the mindset for it, and you keep jumping on these ideas and trying to work it, and you're foundationally not right. And you're trying to go far, you're trying to go in, you're trying to make it happen. But inside you have a different feeling or thoughts or belief system. And then they experience that failure, they get really afraid, and then they go back to comfort zone, go back to employment. But it's the best is to kind of keep working it, like you said.
Yep. 100%, man. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. And how about this, the journey in the podcast world, especially during the pandemic? Have you noticed increase in your business? Have you noticed any kind of difference?
Not really. We shifted our business a lot though. So it's kind of, I don't know if we can give a great answer to that question, meaning that at the end of 2019, we looked completely different than we looked at the end of 2020. So we just shifted a lot of things in our business. So I don't know if I would be the best person to measure demand in that context, but to answer your question, I think a lot of people started podcasts during COVID just because they finally had a little bit of extra time to do things. We started a software company because of COVID. It was just like, hey, we had 12 trips on the calendar and they're all canceled now. So what do we do with this extra time? But so you started the show because of COVID?
Yeah,
you had some extra time from COVID?
Well, COVID. I'm a COVID pivot child. I had to take major pivots. My entire world shifted from March last year, completely. And this is one of the products, the show. But it's definitely, it depends on what industry you were in, what kind of business you were in. It affected some in a good way, some in a bad way, some in the middle. Right. So a lot of places, I know pivot is thrown out so much, that word, but it is what it is, right? A lot of people had to pivot, right? The podcast was the number one. You're right. I remember back then it was all about podcasts. Everybody was talking about podcasts.
Yeah. It's something that I think we're still going to see a ton of uplift in podcasts, man. It's still in its infancy comparatively to every other platform.
Very small.
Clubhouse has been around for a year and it already has 12 times the user base of podcasters.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? So I just think podcast is still at the beginning. It's just the barrier to entry is a little bit higher than for these other platforms because you can't just create an account and be like, okay, I'm live. You know what I mean?
It takes takes like educating, right? Like a lot of people jump into it, they make a lot of mistakes. You know, they don't have a format, they don't have an idea, they don't get the coaching, they don't get the help, right? It's so critical. Anything that anybody jumps into, it's so important to spend the money on someone that's already been there. Like I can't say that enough.
Yep.
If you're going in a podcast, talk to Travis, right?
I completely agree with you, except for I'm going to make one adjustment to what you said, Chad.
Yeah.
Which is don't spend the money, invest the money.
Oh yes, good point.
And I know that's what you meant by saying that. And you
that's what I meant.
To draw people away from that.
Yeah.
But I do try to keep the verbiage to get people to shift their mindset, because that's what it is. And people, they chalk it up too much as an expense, where they look at it's like, man, $1,000 for a course. I don't know if I can do that. But you're paying $750 a month for your truck payment.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Like what's more important to you? Like having a truck that doesn't make you money, or creating an online business that could potentially let you live the life of your dreams and make you a lot of money? Like, if you look at it as an expense, then you compare it to other expenses, like, well, look at all the other things I could buy for $1,000. I could buy that gaming system, or I could buy that new phone, or I can buy that computer, or all those other things. And it's like, sure, you can do all that, but it's not going to make you money. No, you know what I mean? Like, this is not an expense. This is investing into yourself, into your learning, your continued knowledge,
your future.
Exactly.
No, I agree 100%. Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm in that world too. Like I mentor people, and I use that word spend, and I shouldn't be, because it is investing. And I spend a lot of money on that part of me, like to make myself better. If I need to speak better, I'll get a speaking coach, right? If I need to get better in selling, I'll get, you know what I mean? So it's always, you need that help. You need to invest in yourself continuous. I'm using that word again, so it becomes part of me now, right?
And it's so true, man, like what you're saying, because the question is, can you figure it out yourself? And the answer is, of course you can. You can definitely figure it out yourself. But then it comes back to, how long do you want to be doing this? Yeah. How long do you want to be trying to figure it out?
I don't want the pain.
Exactly. Because it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what our most important asset in life is. Our most important asset in life is not our money. Money is by definition a replenishable asset. So your time,
medium of transfer.
Exactly. Yeah. Your time's the only thing that's inherently valuable. It's the only thing that is by definition in scarce supply. So if you can trade something that's replenishable for something that's not replenishable, why wouldn't you do it? You know what I'm saying? So like, if you can shave off 2 years from your learning curve because you bought $1,000 course or paid 10 grand to be in somebody's coaching program, and you can learn from all of their mistakes that they've made over the last 5 years of gathering information, and you can get access to all of that in 2-3 months. Look at all the time that you're saving. Like that's why I buy into these things, because like, I want to save time. Like it's being urgent, but patient. You know what I mean? Like, I always tell people, like, be patient, but be urgent, or be urgent, but be patient. It's like, you're always playing the long game with urgency. You know what I mean? So like, I want to get to the end, I want to get to the result, but also you still have to think about the long game.
Urgency with a calm mind, that's the key. You have a state of urgency. You're always feeling that urgency, but you're doing it in a calm manner. And a calm manner is investing in these things, because if you study all the successes out there, the big component of who they are is who they invested with, like who they actually hired to help them. Anybody you look at in your research, there's like lineup of coaching that they went through to get to that place,
and are probably still going through.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine. I did it though, by the way. Like I'm not, I'm in my 40s. So I did all that. Like I did before, I would just say I could do everything. I'm like, I come from a family of business. I can do anything. And I had this, conscious thought that I was able to do anything, and I would just go at it. I would just jump in different industries. I probably did business almost all industries. I would just go, I would just try it, and do it. but then, obviously my inner belief system wasn't aligned. And then also I didn't get help. First of all, I didn't really know that something like this was out there even back then.
Yeah, right.
I didn't even know that I could go hire someone to teach me to do something quicker. Like that's, like if I had that back then, it would be totally different right now. So,
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. So we always like to ask our guests, what's their inner superpower that got them to this point?
That's a good question, man. Influence or persuasion in some way, like I would chalk it up to sales, but like, I don't know if sales is completely all encompassing, because a lot of it's been like the network that I've been able to build, which I think is a lot of communication and understanding social psychology, at least on a really basic level, to some extent. So I would say something about communication and the people that I've been able to connect with is really a lot of it. So, I mean, the end goal is the end answer is the people that I connected with is why is I think in my, one of the biggest assets that I have. And I think that was able to be done through trying to learn how to communicate with people more effectively.
So that's like the inner superpowers, relationships. And that's funny that as your superpower is your business. Like you connected it.
That's the thing is like, I didn't choose a networking podcast because I was a great communicator and a great networker. I chose it because I wanted to become that. I never even been to a networking event in my life before I started Build Your Network. I just knew that networking and building better relationships with key people would be something that I valued in my life. And I should probably put some time and energy into learning how to do it better. And what better way to do it? What better way to learn something than to help teach it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So when I first started my show, man, I didn't do any solo shows ever. I did only interviews because it was my goal to interview people who were good at the thing that I wanted to get good at and ask them questions about how they got good at it,
That's great. Well, Travis, it's been amazing talking to you about all the amazing things you're doing. And I wish you all the success and, the help that you could provide people to create a business and to create something out of nothing, and you can guide them is incredible. So, I wish you best of luck.
I appreciate it, Chad. Thanks so much for having me on the show.